Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be I quit my job to pursue my passions, but my girlfriend is no longer supportive. Well, this particular email is from a guy who's been following me for quite some time. He said he got his girlfriend and baby mama of 7 years due to my work. And so back in 2021, he quit his job to pursue his passion for investing in the stock market. And so I guess somewhere along the way in 2022, I think it was, his girlfriend got an opportunity to start a business. And so he moved away. I guess he was doing like trades work and stuff like that to keep the cash flow coming in. And since she was doing well enough, she's been like the primary breadwinner. But now we're into 2025, 4 years later, and he's still going to school. He's basically a stay-at-home dad, takes care of the kids and everything else. And she's getting a little bitchy, and she's her patience is running out. And he doesn't really want to go back to work because he's like, well, then I have to give up my school to do that, and then I'm giving up my passions, and it's the end of the world, basically. So let's go through his email. I'm kind of surprised that he got this far down the road. I don't know if you guys can probably hear the puppies are all going bananas. That that he was able to go 4 whole years without really having an income and relying on his girlfriend to provide for the whole family. She just doesn't feel like he's doing enough to contribute. So he says, "Hi, Coach from Australia, long-time listener, first-time emailer. I found your work long back when I wanted to attract a woman I worked with in 2014. So he's been following me for 11 years. He says, I then left my girlfriend in 2015 and found a woman just like her in 2018, thanks to your work. I read and listened to 3% Man repeatedly back then. Fellas, don't ever put it down. He says, in 2021, I left my employment to study stock market investing part-time and start a business as a tradesman with the rest of my time. My passion is investing, and I had my business as a tradesman as backup when I needed the money." Well, that's a smart way to grow a business. And I discuss these things at length in Mastering Yourself because I've done both. I've built a business on the side, and I've also burned all the boats and had no income and relied on my savings, my capital, to fund my new business. For those of you that read Mastering Yourself, you know how that turned out. Because when you got money in the bank, you got capital, you got a certain amount of runway, a certain amount of months or years, unless, of course, you're independently wealthy, made it the old-fashioned way, you inherited it. But the rest of us schmucks, we had to work for it. No silver spoon was in my mouth when I was born. He says, my girl was my biggest cheerleader when I quit my employment in 2021. I worked and studied 50-50 with my time from 2021 to 2024. Things were going smoothly. In 2024, we decided to move 2 hours away, which I agreed to, as it was an opening for me to study more, and my partner had a great business opportunity in our new location and would pay our way while I got my stock market investing project off the ground. Well, if you're investing in them, unless you're a day trader, typically if you're investing in the market, it's like what Buffett says. If you wouldn't own a stock for 10 years, you should own it for 10 minutes. And so I don't know if that means he's just investing and waiting for things to take off, or he's a trader and so he's in and out of stocks based on the volatility. He says, this meant leaving my business behind and having more of a role with the kids, home, and studying. No more income from me. So I assume his girlfriend was making really good money in her business. He says, I study my ass off, or he says arse, A-R-S-E, the way they pronounce it there, from the land down under, into the night, and with all the free time I have during the day while the kids are in school. My investing is not bearing fruit yet, and my missus is now becoming bitchy, doesn't talk about me positively like she used to, blaming me for not earning and pushing me to do more home duties while she grows her business. Well, that would be reasonable for you to, if you're strictly going to be at home and she's going to provide the income for both of you and obviously your kids, That's really not, especially if you're at home all day working from home and studying, that would be understandable. I feel I'm losing my masculine image with her, and she's growing hers. Yeah, this is definitely going to force her to be into her masculine, and that's why she's becoming bitchy. Women tend to become bitchy because they don't feel safe. They feel fearful. In other words, they don't feel like they can rely on you. And so she's given you a year, but, I mean, you've been at this for 4 years now without much to show for it. So this is totally understandable, and quite frankly, it's to be expected. Women, quite frankly, aren't really built to handle this role reversal. And what I've seen over the 20 years I've been doing this is guys get about 6 to 12 months to flail around, be depressed, be sad they lost their job or whatever, until the women start looking for the exits. He says, it seems like it was all a bad idea. I'm also not appreciating the disrespect she now pushes my way due to not earning any income, even though she agreed to our new way of doing things. Well, there's always a time limit. Like if you were investing in a business, say it was you and another partner, and you both agreed to put a certain amount of money in. Maybe you were going to do more of the work, the other one was going to do more of the capital contribution. And so when you're coming up with a partnership agreement, you're all one of the best things to do is to determine what's your ceiling? How much money are you willing to invest and lose before you're like, all right, I'm tapping out? And there, again, you put that into a partnership agreement. So say your business partnership requires $200,000 of capital, and that gives you 24 months of runway. And maybe you put in $50,000 and your partner puts in $150,000. Well, in the partnership agreement, you spell out that that's what you each owe to the partnership. Maybe you put it all in at once, or maybe you contribute for the duration. But if you don't get those things agreed to ahead of time and up front, then typically whoever is working the hardest is going to get upset at some point in time. And then you're going to have bad friction. I'm spending too much time with the kids because she has to work. I'm not cut out for it. Well, maybe you should go back to work then. We have just ticked over 7 years together and 2 kids who are 2 and 5 years old. This is where I need your help. Have I fucked up by not preempting how this would go relationship-wise? Well, you should have had a better plan. And when you had a good income from being a tradesperson, and then all of a sudden you just quit to rely on your girlfriend, like I said, you've probably heard me say many times, if you've been following me, or maybe he got away from following me and just as recently come back because he'd been in a good relationship. And so what's happened here is you've kind of made your girlfriend the man in the relationship, and you're acting like the woman. And it sounds like you're kind of complaining, I don't have enough time to take care of the house. I need help. You got to help me, which is typically what the women complain about, even though when they're a stay-at-home mom, they complain that you're not doing enough to help around the house, even though you might be working a full-time job. I'm unsure if I should get a full-time job and forget the study for now, but that would likely make me depressed for not chasing my passions. Well, you just have to change your approach because, again, I don't know what type of investing you're doing. Maybe you're doing covered calls or something like that. You're doing options trading. But it sounds like you're investing and sitting on it. And so, I mean, you're not going to make money for a long time. Unless, I don't know if you're investing other people's money or it's just your own personal money. You didn't really elaborate. But you got to have some kind of income. And even you said you're not really cut out for childcare and basically being Mr. Mom. He says, so maybe the solution is to go back to work. Maybe you go back to work part-time, or you do the tradesman thing again in your area and you build a business on the side. Because that's the smart thing to do, is to have 2 incomes. Because what happens if your girlfriend's business fails? Then now you have 0 income. But if she has a good, successful business and you're making money as a tradesman while you're also building your investment portfolio on the side, that would make more financial sense. You create a more stable environment. You would be calmer. You'd be more relaxed. Because you're going to do your best work when you're relaxed. And you're clearly stressed out. And your girl's stressed out. And that's not a good place to be, especially with 2 little kids at home. Or should I keep it for a bit longer despite how I feel and how I am being treated by her? Well, obviously, what you're doing is not working, so you need to make some changes. He says, also, are there any tips about how to date and court my woman while we have no spare money for babysitters? Well, again, I think the smart thing to do is to get a job and to get a second income. So you're going to have to figure that out. He says, I'm struggling in this area. How can I resurrect my masculine image while I'm not earning? Well, you need to earn. Pretty simple. Because this is typically when guys are single and they're struggling, they're going to have more short-term relationships. But when they're stable, they're making good, stable money, they have a good career, good job, good business, they're going to feel more comfortable being in a long-term relationship, having kids, those kinds of things. So you started building your family when both of you were pretty stable. Both of you had a dual income household. And then you made a decision a year ago to move, to give up your business and to do this full time. And as you said, you're not really cut out for it anyways. So you and your girlfriend need to sit down and have a heart-to-heart, because if you keep doing what you're doing, she's just going to get bitchier and get more upset. And so what it tells me is you stop dating and courting her because you're concerned about money and you don't have cash for babysitters. So you can't end your courtship because of cash. Because what's going to happen? Eventually she's going to look for the exits. And depending on her character, she'll either dump you and find somebody else, or she'll find somebody else while you're together, start dating them because they're stable, and then they'll leave you. And you'll have to get a job anyways. So if I were you and you want to keep your relationship together, I would go and get a job and figure it out and contribute. Because the courtship never ends. That's a core principle from the book. So it sounds like he said, he read the book a lot many years ago, and he probably got away from it and didn't realize he was slowly getting away from it until now his girlfriend's bitchy all the time. She doesn't feel safe because you're not pulling your weight as the man. It doesn't mean if you get a job, you got to quit your studies. It just means you're not going to have to study as much. And I don't know what you're studying. If you're going to school, or you're just studying the market, or you're doing research. But you're going to have to work. You're going to have to earn an income. Because how are you going to be a successful investor if you're broke? That doesn't really make any sense. So I don't know what kind of capital you're investing, or maybe you're just studying, or maybe it's, your girlfriend just look at it and recognizing you're not really making any progress. You're not making any money yet. You're broke. And since you don't have any additional money to take her out and get babysitters, then you're no longer dating and courting her. And women want to be in a love story. And again, it's a core principle from the book, and you can't violate it. He says, I feel I've lost your respect, and I am working harder and longer than I ever have, but with kids, home, and study, and not earning much yet. Any advice for a guy in my position is greatly appreciated. Well, you're going to have to do some reorganization in your life. You're going to have to get a job, because the way you're going about it clearly is not working. All it's doing is adding stress to the household, and that's not a good environment. Kids need to be raised in a calm environment, not an environment where mom and dad are at each other's throats and mom doesn't respect dad because he's not making any money. And on top of that, since they don't have any money, he doesn't date and court her anymore. Because if you don't date and court your girlfriend or your wife, eventually some other guy is going to come along and do it for you. All you got to do is look at Tom Brady. He had everything. The looks, the position, the money. He had everything. Even though she was wealthier than he was, I think she still is worth more than he is. But he didn't date and court her. He wasn't present. Wasn't there. And eventually she tapped out. And now she's with the jiu-jitsu guy. And they just had a kid together. So you're in danger of wrecking your relationship if you keep on the path that you're on. I would never advise this. I also highly recommend that you read Mastering Yourself. That's free to read in the members area of the website to help you understand, because it's like you got to have cash flow, dude. That's kind of the bottom line. And you'll respect yourself more if you work. She'll respect you, and you got to date and court her, dude. You can't just sit at home and expect your girlfriend to be the man. There's a time limit on that, and your time is running out. So if you got a question or a challenge and you want to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen on any page of my website, and book a coaching session with yours truly. If you haven't already signed up for our paying exclusive members-only content, in the video description of this video, there are links to join on YouTube, or you can join on Spotify, or our website, understandingrelationships.com. And with the website, you can do a 7-day free trial, so you can check out the content. And if you choose an annual plan, you get a 25% discount for paying the whole year's premium up front. So wherever you subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, the website, understandingrelationships.com, click the plans tab when you get there, is where you will consume the content. YouTube is not connected to the website. YouTube and Spotify are not connected. I've had people think that if they subscribe to Spotify, it gives them access to the other two places. I don't understand how they think that's possible, but that's not how it works. These are independent platforms, so wherever you spend the most time is where you should consume it. Just keep in mind there are videos that are not going to be on YouTube just because there's things I can't say and discuss there. So you get more content on the website and Spotify, and you get me at full breach because I kind of have to hold back when I'm on YouTube. So go to understandingrelationships.com, click the plans tab, sign up for a 7-day free trial, and remember, Wednesdays and Thursdays we do viewer question live streams from 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 4 p.m. and on Friday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So hopefully we'll see you guys on a live stream. You can bring your questions there and ask them to myself and Chunky and the girls. So until next time, I will talk to you soon.